really must go east past the bay, I say. And the stiff begun to be discovered. No soul picking up the cold generation won't have to pay the price for our generation's mistakes. And that's how it goes. That's the race. There's no skill like mine. Still, genetic engineering is not at all endearing to me. While calculating the promise, remember this, the real of the matter. Shattered tradition makes us feel free and danger is nourishment for the brain. But tradition is a static defense against a chaotic community. And what would we say about destroying? Would we ever be happier than we are here on the mountain? Difference is not equal to equality. Inequality is not even a reality on the battlefield. Don't resist, don't believe it, and it will exist. That will mean it disappear, but it won't corrupt you personally or feel. Any resolution must come from the personal revolution.
Hi, welcome to the Segue reading series. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes.
True values in our age compete upon a stage of not better, but more than before. And hey, sons of science, technologies are groomed, but the faster that we move, the more we risk to lose by the anyone's hand of unforeseen consequence. The last of the natural peoples are said to be living in the past. Their innocence is no bastard against the modern dangers and inevitable exploitation. Innocence is no protection. They cannot comprehend the impending future. An age of the individual is over. All living are opportunists or idealists, drawn by the cry of a multitude idle. And all systems exist because of supply and demand. On the other hand, cause and effect is perhaps the only definitive perfection. The dedication to change, the dedication to survival.
Hi, welcome to the Segue reading series. Tonight we have Brian, Kim Stefans, and Stefans Brown. And we're going to have Brian first. This is our Lonely and My Last event for the season. And then starting next week, we'll have the Artist Space folks, Jay Sanders and Stella Silman will run a series. And you can see that series at the SegwayFoundation.com website or at Artist Space. And it looks like it's going to be a great listing. Today, Segue is proud to present Brian Kim Stefans and welcome him back to the reading series. His new book, Four Trapped Things, which I should have a copy, but there are copies out there for $10. Four Trapped Things is his third roof book after Cluj and Free Space Comics, as well as others elsewhere. I hesitate to characterize Four Trapped Things because I can hardly improve on his ability to write ironic humor containing its own critique, and because there's so much in it. Its diversity includes an ecological poem where he begins around the pool the hippos drool, and ending with eyes eye darkness, ears hear hush, the assassin's humor feasts. So from spit to death, Stefans in Four Trapped Things writes a contemporary poet maudit. Even his identity poem, where poets often wax genuinely, my identity is sardonic. I'd like to take a stand about my identity, ... I'd have awesome self-confidence. Well, apparently that's not happening. So let me say that beyond Brian's satirical verses, he writes other mocking verses. In the poem starting with a line from Walt Whitman, he says, I cock my hat as I please indoors and out. I zip up my fly, but often zip it down. In formal occasions where laughter's not allowed, but zip it back up when there's money around. And here's the main object of Brian's satires, quote, an urge for protection, not just for me, but for us. Ultimately, the satire moderates when he considers our collective needs, quote, and we must love two horizons, neither represented by people, but as idols of absence, extolling the plateaus of control and liberty, damage and health, boredom and esprit, of something like classes and something like hope. I know such blatant honesty is not fashionable, but I love this ability in Brian to identify at all scales from, quote, charismatic herbivores to the misanthropes slumming among the invertebrates, since they're honest. He's referring to poetry and a language to be used by the aspirant to transcend mere sport of the spiritual. Brian Kim Stefans has been at this poetry writing for quite some time and with much to speak of, but let me rather let him speak for himself in his own words. Here's Brian Kim Stefans.
Those are the nicest words James has ever said to me in our entire 40-year relationship. Oh my God. No, that was really great. And I'm glad you read that little Whitman thing, because I wasn't going to read it. So you read the whole thing. So that's cool. I just taught One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at UCLA, and that almost seems like a kind of a R.P. McMurphy poem, actually. Well, anyway, so thank you so much for coming out. Yes, I haven't read here in a very, very long time. I used to read here quite frequently, quite often, quite terribly. You know, I kind of cut my teeth in just reading in front of a bunch of people that I was very intimidated by. I'm not intimidated by you, though. I have to tell you, there's so much good material in these books that anyway, so, and what I also did was I wrote up a set list, but I'm not reading all of these, I promise. I just wanted to not have to fumble around going through different things in front of you. So, and I also am going to set myself a timer because I'm a professional. I thought to start with a book that, poem that I actually never showed to James. So James really helped me a lot with editing this down from a whole bunch of things that I wrote during what I optimistically call the Trump era, which we might be visited upon again. But this one, I don't think I showed it to him because I really didn't know what to think of it, and it just sounded like a liberal rant. And I don't consider myself really a liberal, but nonetheless, here's my liberal rant. It's a little dated, but hopefully you'll enjoy it. Rant, see how inventive that is. The rupture, spontaneous combustion of the president's inner circle, the bloviation that smelled like a Funyun to Angela Merkel, the regular and irregular diplomacy that made even Ukraine look copacetic, like the sugar and sugar-free, who can tell, candy to the dead diabetic. The endless games of golf with sycobordinates who struggle to sing in the major key, and they do so nicely, but soon get bored of this, then poop pants like a monkey. The rantings, ravings, cravings, and tweetings that drive the internet like pornography, happily unread by those still sleeping, shifting in guilt-free undies. The travel to distant lands by the bromantic lawyer, an Italian-American Byron, huzzah! Capable, loves to flirt, takes great pictures, toiler in the armpit of SpongeBob. The rupture, Carl Schmitt's creator of enemies, the sovereign exceeding the paper laws. There's a touch of Carlyle. The Breaking Bad frenemy we hired to gas roaches. The looker, the ugly, the saint, the non-saint we hired to scratch the chalkboard. The one we could never venerate or even hate, given Pizzagate, Pepe, the deep state, the Space Force. Something seems untidy. Schiff, with those terribly divisible lips of his, not unlike Mulvaney's, has slid the writ of impeachment across the bar to McConnell's mint julep. The rupture, spontaneous combustion of the president's inner circle, crow thinking swan, shit stain thinking rocky road, and morons professing a miracle. Where else am I going to put it? Yeah, Stephen Colbert would never read that on his show, but it would probably work. And then I did put out this book during the pandemic, which was a complete translation of the verse poems of Arthur Rimbaud, where I the kind of tactic here was to translate the poems into the original meters, more or less, like Alexandrines, essentially. So I tried to be as strict with that as I could, partly to kind of limit my own creativity within these translations, but also to like explore what would it be like to write an Alexandrine? Could I invent the American Alexandrine? I'm not sure if I did, but I will read at least one or two of these poems. The most famous poem of his, or one of the most famous, is this sonnet to the vowels. So like I said, I holding myself to this kind of meter, I ended up expanding a little bit, but also contracting. And I thought mine came out pretty well. Vowels. A black, E white, I red, U green, O blue. Vowels. Someday I will betray your burgeoning nascence. A hairy corset of black glittering flies, gambling around the void of a punishing stench. Gulf of shadows. E, white of steam clouds, bivouac tents, the pikes of proud glaciers, white kings, or Queen Anne's lace. I, purples, blood from split lips, laughing with vengeance, or Saturnine remorse, rouging a doll-like face. You, circuits, changing tides on divine green-flecked seas, peace of dull animals on fertile pastures, peace of a pensive curled brow engrossed by alchemy. O supreme trumpet, strange with solar key changes, silences only spanned by worlds and by angels. O the Omega, the violet beam from his eyes. Anyway, I think that'll be the last one I read. But it's an awesome book. You could buy it through small press distribution. It was published by Kenning Editions, which is a great small press. It also has a really great cover. I don't have any covers. I don't have any copies with me because I don't want to bring them out here. But you could find them through a little thing called the internet. And the last thing I'll read prior to moving actually to this book is, when I was in New York, I was a bit of a manic writer. I just would write all the time and do all kinds of crazy shit and imitate Charles Bernstein or whatever. I would just do all kinds of stuff. And when I got out to LA, I had these boxes of all these poems, and I always wanted to kind of go through them and see if I could figure out if there were any good ones in there that I never bothered to throw out there into the world. And I thought I'd read this one. And a lot of these I don't even remember writing. Not because I was drunk. Though possibly. Anyway, so this is an oldie, probably written in 2000 or something. It's just called I Couldn't Remember. I couldn't remember our journey. In the palms of my hysteria, I scribbled this down, take out the face. An elevator car that smelled of vomit and disinfectant, black heart of the populace coming back to ruin perfectly good machines. Of course. The lavatory where I avoided perfectly bland conversation, the most I ever had in a week or a day, same thing, but the men were so much shorter than me. Some of them were graying blondes. Now dark at 5, where elsewhere in the world it hit at 6, not augmented by the buildings, unswaying and impressive prior to their camouflage among slush. This is why I stayed here, despite dreams of Florence or Patagonia, even Halifax or Tasmania, the phlegmy throats of the streets riddled with masculine excuses for not going home. Who goes home? Some linger for hours by the death subways, reading nothing in particular, a magazine too frivolous to be subscribed to, but choked for information about an evening's events. I walk briskly. I bounce when I walk. Even the children mock this with an invigorating liberality, free of the spies that occupy my office each day until writing at 6 when I get here. I think there's some allusions to 9/11 in that one too, but remember 9/11? Some of you weren't even born yet. That's what I have to say to my students all the time. Challenger disaster? Too soon? Okay, so let's go to for Trap Things. So, I really have to thank James for, really helping me with editing this thing. I was really quite lost with it. And then I have to thank Holly Melgard for coming up with this really awesome cover that makes it almost look like a fun book. And she really picked up on the title. The title's actually taken from a John Wiener's poem, anyway, it just seemed like a suitable title when I finally came around to putting the collection together. So I know James described all these poems as sardonic and sarcastic, and there are a lot of sardonic and sarcastic poems, but there are also some that I think have a certain sweetness and light, as I like to quote Matthew Arnold. But I will start with one that James actually quoted from. I've only been going for 9 minutes. Too bad for you. We have a lot ahead of us, kids. This one's called My Identity. And it's written in these kind of tercets here, which I numbered, but I'm obviously not going to read the numbers, but they kind of are intended to just read almost as like their own little things, little, whatever, epic, short poems. My identity. I'd like to take a stand about my identity. I'd like to be half Asian and half white. I'd like to do that. I'd have awesome self-confidence. The sun would breathe in my Instagram photos, saturated reds and oranges like an Italian sorbet, Zarathustra dawns and Machiavellian twilights. I'd like to sing this native song. I'd like to know the words. With a melody by Debussy, lyrics by Genet, this anthem would unfurl over the hills and plains. I'd like to retreat into my identity. I'd like never to speak, just speak when I'm meant. I'd like to be race loyal. I'd like to sign the document. I mean it, that I really mean this country, the one that is half Asian and half white, the one between Mongolia and the local in and out. I'd like to be fit with tight black jeans to ensure procreation of my impetuous race, the one known for poetry, the one known for trade. I'd like the world to know that I own my body, the one appropriated by the artistic elite, the one never painted, impossibly naked. I'd like to marry ladies who are just like me, just one, of course, but I'd like to have to pick between those who are born here and those who are fake. I'd like to have a border, colorful native costumes worn only on the holidays. I'd like to have holidays where we commemorate famines, drink alcohols from ancient grains. I'd like to have a president who looks like me. I'd like to have a movie star for my race who tells my story. I'd like to sleep deeply and dream only of my race. I'd like to know if my literature is up to grade, that the literature of my race is being read, that the literature is being written with pen and ink. I want to fight the powers that be, who crush me with their platitudes and urges to cede, to flee and be lessened, to give up the territory. I'd like to be a missile in a missile test and trace a glowing arc in the liberal sky that grants me identity, intent, and a place to cry. I'd like to take a stand about my identity. I'd like to be half Asian and half white. I'd like to sail on a milky sea and eat kimchi. The quail would fall into my lap when I wasn't even aiming. Gold records for songs I never sang would adorn my home. I'd have the forearms of Rambo, but never fight in Vietnam. I'd like to find a home for my damn country, over 16 blocks of storefronts in LA County, with restaurants half Asian, half white, only foods I like. I'd like to be funny, I'd like to tell jokes. Only half Asians would pee in their pants about, and half white Asians would know by heart, like Adidong. I'd like to know the authenticity of this leather hide, to have a league of peers with a similar discrepancy, not exactly like mine perhaps, but using it for a template. Yes, that was then, black was white, I'd prefer. Yes, I could talk, but talk better now with words, handed down to me by centuries of sacrosanct ancestors. I'd like to be a coin in a pop-up economy, a coin unwavering in the thrill ride of history, of X value one day, the same X value the next, and the next. I want to dance. I love to dance, and dance within me. I don't want to dance in couples when it's just me. I want to dance the native dance. I love that country. I want to be the superhero of my identity. I'd like to know if the other side is trying to screw me. I'd like to know if the water I drink is pure for me, that I am pure. Is that one? Oh, you can clap if you want. Thank you. Just busting your ass. Well, that was the best poem I'm about to read, so we'll try a couple other ones. Probably like some of you, but maybe not many of you actually. Um, I used to get viciously attacked on the internet for this, that, and the other thing. I know it sucks. No, it doesn't. I probably deserved it. But anyway, I wrote this poem, which I thought was amusing. Because poets are always going after each other for some dumbass thing that usually derives from academia, which is where I am in academia, so I take the blame. But anyway, this one's just called "Among the Things." Among the things I don't deserve is this time to write. They call it a civil right, this demand that I not write. But I can't simply wait, much as I agree it's pointless, this commerce with the far right on my near left, asking me to die. It would be funny to comply, propitious, environmental, if only for a while. Then stage resurrection, author photos, fresh blurbs, the life, if only out of spite. This time I'll try to be nice, void the propositional anything I might want to say about this or that, flip or snide, the catnip of trolls and slights exponentially arrogated to principle or not. Daily traffic of reviews and likes, barbiturates of the internet, polysyllables of the monolitristic stress me out. I come out often to say exercise, my right to say exercise in broad daylight if the price were right, if they'd shut up for the night. Put the trash out, call in the cat, brush, then shut up and let me write. It's boring being dead as the meat, the life, calls me from the crypt I've just fixed up so nicely with Alex Katz's prints, frames around my rare LPs, books of old poetry, not the kind to draw me into the fight. I have it so nice. But death has its price, nothing to which to cling or fog my diamond mirror with. Curses and banishments come and go with the grave, thick turns of Game of Thrones, and repercussions waver with the cinematic sheen of biblical epics or Hawthorne's Scarlet Letter, even as these heroes can't commit to more than a thimbleful of violating prose. But I lie, shielding a preference for the singular oil against the numerical, a feeling I might be wise to hide. So let me die for the night. Okay. Let me read one that that doesn't have that kind of so-called sardonic tone. You know, one of the things I was doing during this kind of period of writing was just leaving. I had a copy of Rilke's sonnets to Orpheus in German on my little stand or whatever, and then I also had a copy of Whitman too, the first edition of the Leaves. So, but this one, you know, which I actually James poo-pooed at first, but then I explained to him it's actually about like white supremacy and eugenics, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, well no, it has to be in there." I don't know if he was that enthusiastic, but nonetheless. But so I would take a line from Rilke, and then, you know, that would be my little inspiration. It's a little sonnet, kind of I always like those little sonnets of Rilke. And this one comes from his Archaische Torso Apollos, sonst kunst nicht der Bug der Brust dich blenden, which basically means they couldn't avoid the curve in the breast, you know, because there was this perfect Apollonian thing. So mine's just called Torso. If the stark outline of an inscrutable torso against an egg blue sky is meaningful, it's because the suffering eye was vulnerable to its meeting of triangles, its proportions. If that regnant statue was the cause of viral palpitations amongst the Commonwealth, the rigor mortis of the stiff muscles quickening the nerves of the provincial, if that's all it takes to advertise health like a gnat trafficking in untold wealth of fertilized eggs with pastures for depositing, weeks later spawning master generations, then of course the species will fall imbecile, disdaining the stratagem of variation. You get it? Anyway, here's another philosophical one, and then I'm going to read a weird one. No, maybe I'll read the weird one first, and then I'll read the philosophical one. So this one's called Point and Void. In some ways it harkens back to some of my earlier poems in the sense that it's just a litany of crazy shit. But I did start with this little quote from Richard Crashaw, who's a metaphysical poet from back in that time in the 17th century. The sweet-lipped sisters, musically frighted, singing their fears are fearfully delighted. Desultory as an oil slick on the rib of a whale, Kodachromed as an image in an ironic tale, bled of all my sewage in a passionless confession, powder white as a mannequin in a boiling cauldron, nip and tucked as a hieroglyph on a moldy slate, pantomimed as a baseball jersey that is celibate, swirled as a toxic creamer in a liver pool, lozenged in the throat of labyrinthine drool. Paralyzed like a tortoise on the verge of remission, diddled in the caverns of the sinking sun, Shawshank redemption inside the white of igloos, spun like a porcelain top amongst the entre nous, inflated like gastric blubber in the aerodome, poncho villaed in the dothraki of a palindrome, devoured by the fumes of the vanilla smokers, gut-wrenched by the timetables of insensate Kurds, cannibalized by cats that emote with swamp lust, vagrantized by the tweet blasts of Elon Musk, skewered by the cook with the Bolshoi stopwatch, fandangoed into the crotch of a boozy Sasquatch, pilloried like a Funyun on a Winterfell spike, Ogden dashed in a clutch of conqueror tykes, whiplashed in the lottery of crustacean reichs, prettified as a pinwheel on a landscape of high fives, de-orgoned as an atom in the sanatorium of wills, unrevised as a telegram that sporked the battles, blustered as a bandwagon of gush in the parliament, voodoo-dolled in the osteoblast in the womb of the universe. Johnny-come-lately in the boxer's velvet thongs, deified as the catamaran of the latest health options, victimized by the romance of the gormless Harris, pin the tail on the donkey by the saintly humorless, jabberwockedly honkied by the coils of the con, Forrest Gumped as a Zelig by the Kennedy assassination, Billy Collins'd as a tool for the latest dog repair, unveiled as the English butler with sarcasm to spare, loopity-looped over the passion play of Cassius Clay, Jerry Springered within the Botox of Frito-Lays, Scooby-Dooed in the wash cycles of Christian denominations, poo-pooed by the Upper West Side's social lucubrations, sugar daddied among the gusts of financial calculations, audened among the rations of the free-verse option, unencumbered as an orphan in a Chumbawamba spree, black marketed in the Scots of kings that would be bees, Nick draped as a kindermass of EDM zombies, perfected as a hook for salmon huffing rabies, laugh-trapped as a Lincoln debate on CBS News, rubbernecked as a feather duster in an apse of blue pews, fine and dandied as a salaried cog in a cow market, 24-hour labored in the featherweight class of progress, perfected as a lemon in just a perfect lemon tree, ungloved as Gwyneth Paltrow among nature's indecencies, bungled as a jungle that blurts of halcyon days, filibustered as the one who tucked in St. Trafalgar's Bay, mumbled as a Modeny in the Kenyan Commons, Brexited as a troglodyte, surviving only on bacon. Ricardo Montalban, by the Ciceros of denigration policy, feted as a thumbnail on an old Windows screen, tawdried among the auks of the pacifically breathing, vegetarianized among the hogwarts of the seething eating. But I love. The body moves forward, remarkets retreat, graceful as Kate Falk down a Tribeca street. Humans dissimulating sideways, eluding the provocative pliés, the wild hugs and kisses of my teetering forays, ignoring the point and void of my Pascalian soul, plotted here on the graph of the presumed universal, brilliantined as the hair of a Bollywood idol, sanguine on a bark beside an atom-bombed atoll. Oh. Well, I probably won't make it to 30 minutes because I'm fucking exhausted. I wanted to read this one. I thought it was kind of funny. So there's this sequence here called The Wild Body, which has this kind of verse form that I invented, which I won't explain. But I'm not sure I love this poem, but I think Kevin Davies might be visiting us through Zoom, so I thought I'd read it anyway, just for him. And each of the poems just has the title is basically just the first line of the poem. So the title is That Sweet Spot Between the New York School and Guy Debord. And the poem goes, that sweet spot between the New York School and Guy Debord, called Kevin Davies, the clouds of articulated labor convening above an EPUB's cubicle, the Eugene Thacker t-shirt arguing for a sharper horror, kind of like The Cure did with the best of their 80s singles, not to mention the sepulchral face paste, which doesn't bother me now. If Robert Smith wants to go on being ancient until he's got sweat patterns on his sheets in the shapes of future album covers, raps as he walks up the stairs and has glass knees, the music still stands as glimmer within the pall of adolescence and the bantering cat howls above the emergence of traditional or classical, whatever, strings in the post-punk studio. That arrival's made complete when, downloads later, it's purified of the reticula of industry that made it never ruinously matter, though now it does. Did you get it? Here's another one from that same series. This one's just like full of references and crazy shit. It's basically just me walking down the street thinking I'm like Nietzsche or something. Nietzsche, like, whatever, I'm just high on myself. And it's called Someday I Will Be Alive and So Can Say Those Things. Someday I will be alive and so can say those things that curl the hairs on the wrist of even the most ardent of Bernie supporters, descend, if only briefly, from the cloud of solecism that I'm otherwise chuffed to call home. Someday strident, dark, untousled, as if auto-cocained since the Paisley AM, thoughts harassing like cubes and spits, angling to be hitched to a syntax, raining like chandeliers over the tomatoes, lavash, and cigarettes of the universes, dragging this Boroko metaphor a bit too far, Armenian grocer. A tactical abuse, wary of the prism of ineluctable transcendence, eyes violent saucers like a hacktivized Reese Witherspoon, the jaw a tyrannical Walkinson's duck, spewing forth impertinent briefs like so many refus global, all of them tossed, all of them reviled, licentiousness embroidered like strangled doves in my vintage coat, replete with Clash-era epaulets. I'd be alive, saying those things, not claiming transmission of some counter-punching Orpheus, nor urging ironic desecration of an invisible capitalist real, the post-structuralist trust, but bubbling, plangent bullshit, like here, a clod in boxers. A clod in boxers. It's a bit of a Mayakovsky illusion. Go ahead, criticize me, I understand. I'm going to read that little quatrain poem that James read a little bit of, and then I'll read a sweet poem at the end about my ex. Where's my, and that'll be it. Shit, did I not even, okay, here we go. So, I always liked T.S. Eliot's quatrain poems, even though, some of them are pretty anti-Semitic, I have to say. But they always had a pretty good vibe to them. I mean the images. I always liked the images. They were always very kind of. So this one I just called Ecological Poem. It's not exactly an imitation of Eliot, but I was. Excuse me. Sorry. Ecological Poem. Around the pool, the hippos drool as if the chloride wouldn't kill them. In fact, they like to play the fool, the harbinger, the pilgrim. The bird that plops into the glass makes a sound, then isn't there. Spiders toss an oleaginous mass, goo-gone into the air. The ants that drag a beat-up car onto the lawn are emissaries of some forgotten prince or czar from an HBO miniseries. The cheetah, panther, jaguar, and lynx, some of these might be the same, conjure images of sphinx and other trademark names. The dynamited whole now teems with insects shiny and obscene, crawling, dying, though it dreams an ectoplasm of green. My own two cats stiffen, confused by this profusion past the door. They bat at things they've often used for sound therapy before. I tell you this out of principle, that spiraling around a theme while naming lots of animals can supercharge a meme. My own skin founders in the rush of allergenic, if cautious, beasts, eyes eye darkness, ears hear hush, the assassin's humor feasts. It's another Rimbaud illusion, by the way. I'm sorry, I sound so pedantic. And this will be the last one. Oh, actually, I'll read this one. This will be my last one. It's called The Scaffold. And it starts with another quote from Rilke. Was es durch Zeiten bekam, das schenkt das Schafott wieder zurück. Which means that, what we receive through time, the scaffold sends right back. And it's basically just a charting of all the parts of my body that have been subtracted over the course of my life. Now, anyway, It's not so much that. But anyway, the scaffold. I have a constellation of ruby birthmark. I'm sorry. I have a constellation of ruby birthmarks on my chest, a volcanic archipelago if you squint, or blooms from mushroom clouds from satellite perspective, canceled atolls bleeding their inhabitants. I have a scar the shape of a scorpion's tail below my left ear. They cut a nerve to remove a tumor on my salivary gland. I can now pinch the lobe's numb skin, painless as pinching calamari. I've had tissue for my terminates reduced. After 2 operations on a deviated septum, still left me a mouth breather like Coleridge, and my eye muscles realigned 5 times, strabismus. My islets of Langerhans lost the season finale to the white blood cells. Even the North's forgotten them, though I suspect Burns had an air in his oeuvre about diabetes and a dirge for a little kid. All these riches, well, at least they're words. I'm sure I've forgotten something. My penis sheath? Countless molars replaced by imposters, some erotic memories lost to low blood sugars. The skin tags that keep reappearing on my forehead, a cyst white as a golf ball from my back, some much needed serotonin, perennially delinquent abdomen muscles that have turned to paunch. What does the scaffold say to this? I'm no criminal, no rebel leader caught sleeping in a garret, and it's 2019 anyway. Garrets are air conditioned and scaffolds replaced by a soup of toxins. I love all this to remain with me. Don't put it on eBay, scaffold, when the time comes to take it back. Take my Morrissey CDs, my books of language poetry, my credit card balances. Just leave me my cyst. And leave me the dead of my friends and my family. I don't care about wit or even poetry. Well, just a bit. In any case, the auction for my bodily riches will bring nothing in. Thank you so much.
Brian Kim Stefans. And there are copies of the book out there for $10. Maybe they'll come in soon. Oh, Lonely's bringing some in now. So, and before we move on, I would like to say to Kevin Davies and all of the people out there on the internet who are watching us to please donate $5 to the readers, because it all goes to them. And Daniel Eberline, our wonderful tech, will be displaying the method by which you can donate that $5 if, like Kevin, you're out there. And we're going to take a 5-minute break, and after that, Cecilia Stelzer will introduce Leanne Brown. Thank you.
welcome back. All right, hi everyone. So for those of us joining us on Zoom, just a reminder again to please donate at the link. All the money goes directly to the readers, so if you haven't done that yet, please do that now. I feel so honored to introduce Leanne Brown today. She's someone whose dedication to poetry I've always admired, from her influential experimental press Tender Buttons to her various published books such as Other Archer, In the Laurel's Caught, and Crowns of Charlotte, to her poetry readings and events at Torn Page, to the many classes she has taught at Brown, Naropa, and Bard, among others. I think it is almost too simple to say that Leanne is dedicated to poetry because there are so many things that she is to poetry and so many things that she directs into poetry, like love, friendship, intimacy, dance, travel, song, wildlife, kindness, dreams, sensation, and of course, community. In her poem, Dear Beloved Community, from her recent work in progress, Magenta Star Songs, Leanne writes, yesterday I had a vision in a relaxing bath of how to transmit a poetry community. A bowstring quivering indoors needs to be a garden. Community as the third term, pollen or compost, in addition to the intertwining seed of reading. Growing green vines, flowers, then fruits of writing. We're all lucky to be a part of the poetry community that Leanne has been transmitting. While rereading her work recently, I wrote down this small note, quote, I think that Leanne loves poetry more than anyone, unquote. I was so struck by her eclecticism, her appreciation for tradition and convention alongside her appreciation for experimentation. In one of her current works in progress, Sonics, she bounces through slanted, translated, and reinvented sonnets. In Kodachrome Sonnet, she writes, babies are about to be born, almost now a sonnet water, the form is torn. Through this tearing and reforming, it seems like she creates this ability to have a greater love for something classic, eternal, through the experiment, through the subversion, and then to also have a greater love for the experiment as well, each accelerating and deteriorating barriers to the other. In a 2007 conversation with Charles Bernstein, Leanne said, one of the things behind my work is just a pursuit of being open to the world and all the language that's coming through me. Reading her work and watching her short films, there is an acknowledgement of the everyday, of the personal. Today, she'll be showing a selection of film poems, beginning with the series Carnet, which was made in France in 1996 as an homage to filmmaker Marie Menken's cinepoetic series called Notebooks. Watching Carnet, there are moments that seem like a warped home movie or an outtake. We see close-ups of a mouth applying lipstick, bodies dancing and twisting discordantly, rain distorting our view of orange fish. There's a play between intimacy / closeness and distance / obscuration that makes Leanne's work so complex and lively. Leanne is removing the netting that separates her life and art, and she is removing our netting as we sit beside her. Leanne speaks to us in the languages of her world, English, French, the names of plants, gestures, smiles, movement, ballads. At times, she's speaking a language that I don't understand. She's naming plants that I don't know and therefore can't picture, or she's speaking in languages that I never learned. One of her short films is titled Bunny Day, which is a slant homophone for the French phrase bonne idée, meaning good idea. In this way, Leanne plays with our comprehension. What can language do when it floats away from signified meaning? In Leanne's world, language is always floating. We are always creating new comprehensions together. Today, we will sit with Leanne in her world, her garden, where, quote, anthology simply means gathered flowers, unquote, where we will name and rename, quote, tripping over the light, imagining you out walking, this late plum left by your door. Be your own, he said, all the different names, but now I realize you're sleeping, unquote. This world where we will float. Leanne is joined today by singer and musician Kobe Batty for a few poem songs. Please join me in welcoming Leanne Brown.
Thank you, Cecilia. That was beautiful. I thought of the word panegyric earlier when I was trying to figure out what I was trying to conjure here. And in honor of, Segue moving to artist space, I was wanting to show some of my visual cinepoems and expand into the sung. So I invite Kobe to come up to do the invocation. We're just going to do one song to open the space into poetry. It's one of the first things we did together. It's a Ed Sanders Fugg's setting of Blake's Sunflower. Sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden climb, where the traveler's journey is done, where the youth pines away with desire, and the pale virgin shrouded in snow arise from their graves and aspire where my sunflower wishes to go. Now we're going to show, thank you. Oh, wow. Now we're going to show an excerpt from Carnet. And one of the things I like to think about, thanks, Brian, for reading all the wild kind of references when we're swimming with other poets in our minds. And so this has a lot of homage and reference to other poets and artists, including Louise Bourgeois and Carolee Schneemann and Marie Minkin, too. So please enjoy a little tiny selection of Carnet. Thanks.
In fear of flipping, does flipping mean crazy? How about strain? Does it mean a severe trial or wearing pressure or effect, such as a strain of hard work, or a passage, as in a piece of music?
Dance in the haste, dance set cast, light and sandy, Kel, Circle K, sense, ha, liquor vein, equals la lecture. No,
and then on the other side, I was doing it and had the additional strangeness of not this handwriting I found. I couldn't tell if it was T's or R's. So, one's waiting, extra heft pretty, listen ready test, van original, air heft veering off, herring veer, tone hands. Day you get stout, be resolute. That deer, sad deer, door's eye, oh see. Dance in the hay, dance. It car Helen sand, kills essence. The lettuce, furl Alec, turd. And then back into
In Dutch again.
into Dutch, yeah.
Bij homophonic translation. Onze waaiding. Extra helft prettig. Gisteren realiteittest. Van origineel. Eieren hebt berig of herenig weer. Toon in hand. Daar jouw geit stout. Omdat de Heer zat neer door zij, o zee. Dan zij in de haai. Dan ze zit kar. Helling. Handrail, the essence C.
And what does it mean?
And then the secret meaning.
Our blow in the wind thing, the extra half is nice. Yesterday's reality test from origin, eggs like bears, or reunite again, shows in hand, there your naughty goat, because the Lord sat down, through her, oh sea, then it's her in the shark.
Relief for a circle, cause an excitement. The cause of an excitement is this. The language is not the same. The door is not the same, the bed is not the same, the door is the same, the window is nearly the same, and the pencil is of silver. One. In bringing a thing into the country, can we ask, is it of gold? A country is not in a circle, it is near and in the distance. Let me amuse you.
Who am I?
So that was at Royaumont in a place, a 12th century abbey above Paris. I'm going to read a few poems that are engaging with film. Writing in the dark. I trace a score of notes during films. Sometimes I get excited. This is one method of composition, scribbling in the dark, not looking down. Film, guys, goes by so fast, a visual thinking that doesn't need meaning, liquid music that explodes, that is quietly making me feel a music. Shot to shot is liquid, a pivot that connects, brings me back to the next unfolding shadow of color. What I notice might be different every time, even though it's the same film. It reminds me of a poem I read over and over. The connections are so that their dimensional hinges radiate again at new angles. These notes are loaded. More interesting poems are easier to misread. Movies wake me up, a stimulating comfort. Notes by nature are discontinuous. The handwriting makes it so. That's why they say suture. I invite you to list the notational, grind new filters, lens and potion both, to write what I may not have. I invite you to write in the dark. Film treatment. Black silence, altered flashing Julie and bathtub flowers. My bed is my desk. The moon comes in later, after, color faded to bleached blue. Somewhere she's putting roses in a bottle through a window. How could you state I no longer believe in this? Window to pool hall clicking, window to sky and small clay sculpture, window with rubbing boy. Divide the windows, perched over the edge, I save the footage until it becomes a different film. And this is one I wrote during a Stan Brakhage and Phil Solomon movie called Elementary Phrases. So I had this practice of writing during things. Darkness added to lunar silver and flowing out and tide-like crepuscule for who? Flames the spectrum of blue-black water, the body riding in the unstable dark, metallic chrysanthemum spews of foiled flame inhaling, paint box shaking gorgeous, fast light flipped and muddied brilliant, piles of colored dust shifting, pyrotechnic starter sets erupt on the dark moon blast. Please melt again, inspired to oil galaxy childhood's black crayons scraped away to colored inks, explode in cometary foils. Rain material, language, the O melts again, my all-absorbing dream. Get me out of practice, habitual foaming as fast as the eye can bear to see. Grain flips its trigger, melts down tender under eyelids trance. Now we're going to show a very short video of two poems, and this is sort of my pandemic project that I still haven't finished. It's Magenta Star Songs for Downhearted People. There's some poems I'll read from that. And I just wanted to show you the spiral garden that's sort of at the center of that book. So there's two poems in the spiral garden that Tony Torn, my husband, filmed. So here it goes. Countdown to plants and planets. Gerard's Herbal says, why look up at the sky when all around your feet are these green beings ready to be seen? Atria are receiving rooms of heart's blood. Where are the hearts of plants and planets? A core to where each stem's blood leads? The flow of would-be water or gaseous striped storms? Up there on the horizon, Ursa Major on the rim of Manhattan lumbers over the edge of night. The next planet over says, hello, it's a mystery we can't hear unless we hold our ears close to shells. Plants awake and go to sleep at the same time, or never. Genderkind, I dressed you up in yellow. The day after you were born, I wrapped you in yellow, a hand-knit scarf swaddled in yellow. To confound the question, boy or girl, as the first and foremost, it was cold December. Your grandfather brought me a handmade drive-by omelet, yellow with butter, and red wine to fortify all the blood I'd lost. Cross Creek appeared on the hospital movie channel. Wrapped in yellow scarf, you saw the world for the first time. It was 12th Street. Today you say again, you must turn from girl, and how cute is insult. Reassignment of ley lines, singing, trace, and redraw their power within a gender expansive hour. Back a few years ago in Carolina, Dot gave her red-haired nephew, now niece, a purse for Christmas. Who the world thought was he was really she, and that was her way of saying, I love you, I accept you. In the caroling poem of our minds, let's decide once and for all to be kind. Of sassafras, sassafras, that multi-flower tree I sing, abundant in her offering. Everywhere around the yard, like a garden in the dark. A poet plants her stars, who later fill in their lovely green. On their own, I give to you these many herbs planted in a spiral round the fast-growing motherwort with the green fuzzy caterpillar who, with any luck, will someday become a moth. Small and white or large and sphinxy, big as a bird, pink clover galore, daisies dying down, hawkweed, like gangly dandelions, all of which we can eat. Elecompane, AKA elf dock, like a giant mullen, fuzzy will shoot up yellow, an August torch. But let's share this three-handed sassafras, flowers like baby fisty popcorn, subverting the duality of all other leaves. And here's a poem that I did in a recent workshop with Sophia Dahlen. Who, if you need a workshop, I recommend her generative poetry workshops. We work with looking at one poem and then doing a call and response. This is after Laura Writing's poem called When the Wind Suffers. January exophory, you are not free, you are free, not from yourself, but from me, authority, Sophia Dahlen, paraphrase. The year is not yet old, the wind blows through glass, The month makes cold its home, and I am living unfocused, as eyes converge to suffer, as in the last evening's dish, as midnight still hours ahead, so I anticipate the wake. But what's this living breath? What the knothole of the due date? What the butter and the larder for it? What the borehole be in it? How unstrained the visual intake? More clarity, less assignment? How the paper towels run out? More wet and more dry? How far the will-o-wisps sing? More sleep for the vanity case? And how form me in my own real trust? To say how I will miss you? By no other whips, by the same self-poisoned apple, by a new improved product, by finagle and finality, by eagle and diversity, by witchberry and poke, by film stills of smoke, by a token of guest, by stroking of mice, by tickling of barrels, by brazing of laurels, by traipsing of hymns. So this is a poem I wrote after a day with Kobe a long time ago, and he hadn't seen it in a long time, so we just thought we'd do this. And then I did a little poem and answer when I looked at the poem that I've never read before, so I'll go into that. So this is called Rose Clothed Ahead, which of course is a pun on road closed ahead, so it's Rose Clothed Ahead. For Kobe and his wolf dog, companion Hazel.
Coyote too.
Oh. Right. You hear something? Peacocks in the rafters, written in blue vectors, in the vortex red, in this our sad and beautiful world. Outside of the video, brimming with memory, the rain comes again, steady in your mouth. The peace lily blooms. We reach people in waves. Be careful, it's porn out there. Pokeberries where in my mind. Peacocks in the sheet metal. Welcome to the secular Church of Happiness. Succubi and incubi, all together now, peruse and pursue your spider musics. The good life fell out of your book. So I put it back in the middle of grace. In the grays, she diffused it. A peace genius walking down the middle. Walking down the middle like a peace genius. She diffused that energy, those two groups fighting, and you were there. Showing my hand, I hold these dream poems so close to my chest, they're in danger of evaporating. Someone's tatters, fragments, might as well be mine. Remnant feed alchemizing through an etheric body, mining language as an aid to making sense of memory, looking at it from alchemized angles. even telling a story, like a story behind a distillate poem. The story that is touched on gets lost in the brambles of performative abstraction vibe. When I ask you to repeat that tale, dwelling in your deep voice cove. As you say, there was a fight brewing between two groups, white punks versus black who? I realize I entirely left out the part about the statuesque black angel man who, what? He
Said peace. Just said peace.
he said peace. He just showed up.
He showed up, that's right. Out of nowhere.
And you meeting in the middle in Richmond, Virginia, I think of the neutral ground. What street was it?
Grace Street.
You met in the middle of Grace, casually talking to show it can be done. And Hazel, your wolf dog, I knew that Hazel, that wolf dog, walked down the middle, magic, dispersed the energy. You best not tangle today, she said. Peace vibes through power, radiating off her brindled fur. Sparks like barks. The two massing packs of warring humans slowly go home. Everybody's seeing red in their mind's body today, guilty of feeling this dull, stuck pain. Again, I yearn for butter melting my occipital ridge, locked up in anguish of anticipated deaths and the past deaths I can't unsee. Runs in blood down palace walls and all the houses from where there are two perceived sides, opposing magnets not yet one with vastly more firepower backed by us, everyday pain so far away, yet so close. My sisters arrested in New York in protest, infighting to the nth humanity near the Red Sea, the death of Charlemagne, Palestine, and all the stuffed animals inevitable like mine. But let their life be long and somehow peaceful right away. And if we each took one person under wing, how long would that war last? And feel the tender area right under your ear, there where if you were Frankenstein, your bolt would be. Stroke it with little circles and figure eights and draw the energy down to the collarbone like the animal you are, needing to be petted and mentally too. And it's so scattered, the dream about red and white cardboard boats constructed in garages. You are one of many, yet still special, and I almost forgot about the part of healing old rifts in the personal sphere. Come here, past friends. Let us love each other all without attachment and reconstruct the story in a different way. Instead of escapism, keep going. And I have one more piece. That's all. It's a ballad, so it's a little longish. This is in honor of Cecil Sharp and Maud Karpeles, who 100 years ago, and a few more years than that, in 2017 was the 100th anniversary of them going to the mountains in North Carolina and collecting songs that had died out in the British Isles, and they were still living in the hills. So I set this I love that a lot of Protestant hymns were from these old ballads, and they put, God words to them. So I started taking them back. So this is for them, and it's to the tune "Immortal Invisible." If anybody knows that.
I'll catch on when you get going.
All right.
Please.
Can I? As soon as I wanted to put the call out. If anybody has any particular stories you want a ballad about, I want some assignments. Okay.
Material.
Yeah. All right. Come, balladers, fiddlers, gather around. A man's come from England to gather our songs. He's heard those old love songs still live in our town. A lady's here with them, she's writing them down. From a city called London out over the sea, he looks like a kinfolk like Aunt Oralee. This Englishman's queer now, he don't eat no meat. His clothes, they're so fancy, those shoes on his feet. He's writing down music, the grace notes and all, and won't stop, I know it, till his book is full. The stars fall in August all over the sky, the Milky Way's churning the sweet by and by. Old love songs, old sad songs, impossible rhymes, give them to your children, they'll make them their own. I'm birthing my baby high up on the ridge. She'll know all the love songs sung over the ledge. My sweat runs down furrows of my lonely brow. I wake and I'm crying, oh Lord, take me now. The songs are a blessing, a friend in the day, or black as a nightmare, oh death, stay away. There's ladies and knights be alive in these hills. There's fairies and elves at the lip of the well. That bird over yonder, take care what you do. He'll spy you, he'll chide you if you've something to rue.
I do.
Oh, take back your hymn tunes and splice them with these new stories. Our tabloids, we're down on our knees. At least we're alive now, little Margaret's no more. So let's sing the old songs from the opposite shore. The songs are still living up under the hill. They pour out at daybreak, they're sung in the mill. They're deep in the bedrock of green serpentine. A snake ate a hoe cake of all of our dreams. Oh, daisies, I see you, you're rolling my way like stars up above me, now falling away. Yeah!
I actually have the info here, so I'm not going to make a mistake.
But I do thank everybody, thank our staff.
Oh,
and
right.
Artist Space.
Yes, thank Artist Space and Daniel Eberlein and Cecilia Stelzer and
Rocky and Jake and Madeline.
And Rocky and Jake and Madeline,
Yeah.
and Lonely, especially Lonely. And that was great. One more round of applause for Leanne and Brian. It was a great finale, and thank you all for coming. Next week, as I said, Artist Space is coming to do their own series, and we're going to have Coco Gordon Moore and all the way from the Bay, Tongo Eisen Martin. So don't miss it, 5 o'clock next Saturday. Thank you all for coming.